And welcome back to the Hockey Talk podcast, where we discuss all things Bruins. Let's go, Bees.
Hello, I'm Brandon, and welcome to episode 2 of Hockey Talk. It's been a little while since our last episode, and there's a lot to talk about, so let's dive right in. Today we're going to talk about how the Bruins have been doing so far this season, the upcoming games for the first 2 weeks of November, and the games from this past week. We've got plenty to cover, so let's get started. First off, happy November. The Bruins have now played 13 games in the regular season, and unfortunately things haven't been going as well as we'd hoped since our last episode. Over their last 10 games, they're sitting at a 4-6 record. While that's certainly not ideal, there have been some positive signs along the way. Let's break down the recent results. Looking back at October, the Bruins had a rough stretch. They lost 2-1 to Utah, then fell 4-0 to Nashville, and took a 5-2 loss to Dallas. There was a big highlight, though, with a thrilling 4-3 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs on October 26, where Brad Marchand scored the game-winning goal.
By Matthews, Pastrnak fakes, Marchand shoots, off the post, Stolarz, they score! It's David Pastrnak again in overtime!
But after that, things took a turn. The Bruins lost 2-0 to Philadelphia and ended the month with an embarrassing 8-2 loss to Carolina on Halloween. That was a game that no one wants to remember. Defensive breakdowns, sloppy play, and a total lack of energy. Getting into November, things looked a little bit better. They started the month off with back-to-back shutouts. First against Philadelphia with Jonas Korpisalo putting on a great performance, and then another shutout against Seattle courtesy of Jeremy Swayman. It was a solid start to the month, and you could see the team beginning to get back on track. But unfortunately, the Bruins' struggle continued on Tuesday night when they traveled to Toronto and were shut out 4-0 by the Maple Leafs. It was an embarrassing performance, plain and simple. The Bruins were outplayed in every aspect of the game, defensive lapses to a complete lack of offense. Toronto controlled the play from start to finish, and the Bruins didn't have any answers. It was a frustrating game to watch, and one the team will certainly want to forget quickly. The Bruins couldn't generate much in the way of offense in their power play, once the strength was stagnant. There were breakdowns in their defensive zone, and the Leafs took full advantage of it. It was a tough loss, especially after the Bruins had shown some encouraging signs earlier in the week. But that's hockey. Sometimes you run into a hot team and everything just goes wrong. That loss to Toronto was a tough one, but now it's time for the Bruins to turn the page and focus on the next game. They'll face the Calgary Flames at home tonight, and they'll need to come out with a much stronger effort. The Ottawa Senators and the return of former Bruin goaltender Linus Ullmark is on the schedule for Saturday, and then next week the Bruins travel to St. Louis and Dallas for two tough road games that will test them further. One bit of good news is the Bruins' recent signing of Tyler Johnson to a 1-year, $775,000 deal. Johnson will join the fourth line alongside Matt Poitras, adding some depth and veteran presence to the roster. It's a move that could help strengthen the bottom six as the season progresses. Looking at the standings, the Bruins are currently sitting at 6-7-1 with 13 points, which places them fourth in the Atlantic Division. They are 6 points behind the first place Florida Panthers, who are 9-3-1 with 19 points. The Bruins are ranked 8th in the Eastern Conference and 16th in the league, trailing the Panthers by 9 points. While the standings don't mean much this early in the season, the Bruins are definitely in a bit of a tight spot right now. They've had some tough losses, but they still have a chance to turn things around. Jim Montgomery has a lot of work ahead of him, but he knows this team has the talent to get back on track. Looking ahead, the Bruins need to find more consistency in their game, whether it's in their defensive play, power play execution, or just playing with more urgency. These are the areas that need to be addressed, but I'm confident that the team can bounce back, especially with the talent they have on the roster. That's all the time we have for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back next week to talk more about how the Bruins respond to these recent struggles and what we can expect from their upcoming games. Until next time, I'm Brandon, and you've been listening to Hockey Talk. Take care.